What needs to be let go and what doesn't. Buddhist wisdom. Most of us have spent years believing that letting go is something we do. We release the grudge. We put down the worry. We walk away from the relationship. Yet somehow the same pattern appears again. And sometimes, after all of that, something still feels unfinished. The grudge is gone, but the tightness remains. The worry was set aside, but a new one arrived before evening. There is something here that most teachings on letting go stop just short of saying. Not because it is complicated, but because it quietly overturns everything we thought we understood about what letting go actually is. A Vietnamese meditation master, Venerable Vien Minh, was once asked this directly. A student came to him and said, "I have heard so much about letting go, but I still don't know, let go of what exactly?" That question is worth sitting with for a moment. Not because the answer is difficult, but because the question itself reveals where most of us have been looking. Before we go further, notice if that question has been sitting somewhere in you, unresolved, for longer than you realize. There are two things that sound almost identical. Most people treat them as the same word. They are not. The first is releasing, letting go of what is no longer needed. Overgrown fingernails. You cut them. That's it. An old coat that no longer fits. You give it away, done. A habit that was clearly causing harm, you stop. That's releasing. It is natural. It is obvious. In most cases, it happens on its own when the time is right. The second is something different. It is an inner stance, a quality of the mind that is present even when nothing on the outside changes. You still have money, but the mind is not gripped by money. Someone says something that could wound you, and the mind receives it without closing around it. A difficult situation arises, and the mind stays open, not because the situation resolved, but because the mind did not add a layer of struggle on top of it. This second kind is not a doing. It cannot be done. It is more like the absence of a particular kind of grasping. Venerable Vien Minh described the difference simply. Releasing is what you do with what is no longer necessary. The other is not an action at all. It is simply the mind not clinging. One happens in the hands. The other happens nowhere visible at all. Here is where the confusion becomes costly. Most of us, when we try to let go, are actually trying to release. We are trying to put something down, move something out of the way, silence something that is too loud. We decide the restless mind is the problem, so we try to let go of the restlessness. We decide the anxious thought is the problem, so we try to let go of the thought. We decide the difficult emotion is the problem, so we try to let go of the emotion. And yet, for many people, the struggle remains. Not because the intention is wrong, but because the approach contains a hidden assumption that what needs to go is the thing itself, rather than the grip around it. Venerable Vien Minh used an image that cuts through this directly. He asked, when you watch a film, what do you prefer? A film with drama, tension, unexpected turns? Or a film that moves at the same quiet pace, scene after scene, never rising or falling? Almost everyone prefers the first. The more gripping the story, the more completely the mind enters it. Now look at your own restless mind. You want it to be quiet. You want to press pause on the inner film. but the teaching points somewhere else entirely. What if the restlessness is not the problem? What if the problem is the wish for it to stop? That wish, that urgent wanting the mind to be different than it is, that is what is actually worth looking at. That is what most people never think to let go of. That is not just a different way of looking at the mind. It is a different layer of the problem entirely. Because now the question is no longer, what is happening? The question becomes, what am I adding to what is happening? When a student told Venerable Vein Min that monks in monasteries have few distractions and can practice easily, but ordinary people have jobs, families, obligations, noise, the master did not argue. He said, look at the film again. A film is most absorbing, not when it is simple and quiet. A film is most absorbing when it has conflict, tension, unresolved questions. The mind enters most fully into what is most alive. So when your life is full, when there are difficult conversations and uncertain outcomes, and people who are hard to understand, that is not an obstacle to the practice. That is the practice made more vivid. The teacher's point was not romantic. He was not saying that difficulty is secretly wonderful. He was pointing at something structural. The mind that is trying to escape the difficult film, pressing pause, switching channels, waiting for a quieter life before it starts paying real attention, that mind is not letting go. That mind is gripping the idea that things should be other than they are, gripping the wish for a different kind of experience. And the gripping, not the difficulty, is what makes the difficulty heavier. Here is what that looks like in an ordinary moment. You are sitting somewhere and a worry arrives. The worry itself has a certain weight. But then something else arrives alongside it, the resistance to the worry, the impatience with yourself for still worrying, the wish that this particular thought had not come at all. The original worry and the layer added on top of it feel like one thing. They are not. The first is what arrived. The second is what you added. And the second, not the first, is where much of the suffering lies. If something in that resonates, if you recognize that layer in your own experience, stay with that recognition for a moment. Can you actually see that second layer while it is happening? Because that is where the practice begins. So what does it actually look like to practice this? Not in theory. In an ordinary afternoon. You are in a conversation that is going badly. Or you are alone with a thought that keeps returning. Or something in your body is uncomfortable and the discomfort will not pass. The usual move is to manage it, to find the right attitude, to apply patience, to remind yourself to let go. The teaching points somewhere simpler. Just watch it. Not watch it in order to make it stop. Not watch it carefully enough that you earn the right to some quieter state afterward. Just watch it the way you watch a film when you have fully given into the story. Not trying to change the plot. Not wishing for a different ending. Just completely present with what is actually happening on the screen. Here is what that watching actually involves. When anxiety appears, don't immediately ask how to remove it. First notice, anxiety is here. Then notice something else, the mind wanting the anxiety to disappear. These are not the same thing. One is the experience. The other is the resistance to the experience. Notice the anxious thought. Then notice the impatience with the anxious thought. Notice the discomfort in the body. Then notice the wish that the body were different. Nothing needs to be fixed in that moment. Nothing needs to go away. The practice is simply seeing, this is the discomfort, and this is the resistance to the discomfort. Just that. Stay with both. Not to remove either one. Simply to see clearly which is which. The moment they are no longer confused with one another, something begins to loosen on its own. When the mind is that honest with what is present, something begins to soften. Not through effort, not through control, simply because what is there is finally being seen clearly. This is what Venerable Vigne Minh meant by the quality of the mind that remains open. Not a mind that has no reaction. A mind that does not add struggle on top of the reaction. That is the inner stance that cannot be forced or manufactured. It can only be recognized. And the recognition happens not in a monastery, not in silence, not when life finally becomes simpler. It happens in the middle of the difficult film. Wherever you are right now, notice if there is something you have been trying to let go of, and whether the trying itself might be part of what is holding it in place. There are two kinds of letting go. One is practical, a coat that no longer fits, a habit that has run its course. You release it. Life continues. The other is something the mind does, or more precisely, something the mind stops doing. It stops adding the layer of protest, the silent argument with what is, the wish that this moment, this person, this feeling, were somehow other than it is. That stopping is not dramatic. It does not feel like a breakthrough. It feels more like setting down something heavy, something you had been carrying for so long that you had stopped noticing the weight. And you may find, the moment you stop trying to let the difficult thing go, that it begins to move on its own. Not because you released it, but because you released your grip on the idea that it should not be there. And perhaps nothing needed to leave at all. Only the struggle needed to be seen for what it was. If this opened something in you, stay with it for a while. And when you are ready, there is more on this channel that explores these teachings more deeply.